What's a better time to take another look at the Fallout New Vegas remake mod than the week that the Fallout New Vegas spiritual successor, that of course being the Outer Worlds, is released. Over the past 24 hours, a ton of teases and new information has been released around this mod, a lot of major details and even images to accompany those details being posted. In this video, what I want to do is show you that, but also some of the other particularly cool mods on their way to Fallout 4. As of late, we've obviously been seeing a lot of controversy with the latest Fallout game, but hey, you always do have the past one to fall back on. Modders have still been releasing incredible stuff, and it seems like there's only more on the horizon. Either way, with all that being said, if you guys enjoy the content, you can leave a like or subscribe. But otherwise, starting things off first, let's take a look at Fallout 4 New Vegas, the community-made Fallout New Vegas remake. One of the first things they post and share with us are actually some of the characters from Fallout New Vegas that have been recreated in Fallout 4's engine. From these, you could see a lot of familiar faces, but of course also to go along with those faces, some assets, armors, world space, or buildings in the background. Outside of just some of the general characters, we also get a look at some of those iconic followers that you knew and loved from this game. With these in particular, especially Boone, because I remember all the way back many years ago playing Fallout New Vegas, and with followers, they're really there for you through an entire playthrough. So I know for me at least, that's where a lot of my nostalgia actually does lie. And although I do have a ton of positive memories around those characters, some characters or NPCs I don't have a positive memory around are the geckos of Fallout New Vegas. We also see several new images around these. They also look particularly cool. They actually look really high quality and high fidelity. The contrast between these and if you actually look at some old Fallout New Vegas iterations of these is actually kind of insane. It really shows just how much better they look in Fallout 4's engine and by the models created by this team. But we also get a look and some details around world space coming with this mod. They talk about how at this point in the mod's development, around 50% of the world space is complete, and as such, you could actually now go in game and look around and see just a lot of the Mojave. Even further, as you actually can tell somewhat from some of these images, they also describe how they actually increase the world size with this mod, scaling up the space of New Vegas by around 25%. This likely a result of the engine benefits you do get from moving up to the later engine that Fallout 4 was created on. And although that is pretty cool, I know people watching these videos always like specifics, and we also do have some of that, as we do see a return of the New Vegas Death Claws. These look particularly awesome. I feel like the Death Claws in New Vegas are so notable because they were absolutely horrifying. They're fast, they did ridiculous amounts of damage, and they weren't just thrown at you early on like they were in Fallout 4. These were serious creatures that you didn't want to take lightly. They did quite a good job at actually recreating that aesthetic from New Vegas with Fallout 4. They look almost identical to how they did previously. But then we get a look at some more specific locations, a peek of the radiation and ghouls of Camp Searchlight, but also, and this one looks particularly great, we actually get the Vicky and Vance Casino. These are of course nighttime shots, but it really does show the lighting overhauls that came with Fallout 4. It's one of those aspects of the game that you probably don't really think about, but then you look at this compared to some of the older stuff and you realize, wow, that actually is a really big improvement. Outside of that, they also have a couple tracks they posted on their YouTube channel. Also have links to those down below if you do want to listen to them, but overall this all looks pretty incredible. Look at some of these images and as you see more and more progress being made, it's really starting to look like a proper Fallout New Vegas remake, like it's from Bethesda themselves. Although I guess recently it's almost nice that it's not coming from Bethesda themselves and rather from an independent mod team. If you want to see more around this, look at some of those images a little bit longer, even see some of their older teases. I will have links to their social media down below. Although speaking of New Vegas, we also get a look at some updates around the AMR. This of course is an already released mod from the umbrella of this mod project, but it has some updates on the way. With this, there's going to be additional options as far as front versus rear sights, also different places you could actually place the scope on this one, but overall it felt fitting to include this teaser with the rest of the Fallout 4 New Vegas updates. Although something I do want to just shout out myself for, earlier this week, or I guess technically last week, I actually showed you guys some of the recent happenings in Fallout New Vegas modding, not Fallout 4 New Vegas, just actual New Vegas mods, going over some of the coolest new mods to come out in 2019, kind of a recap of the past year or so. I encourage you guys to check it out if you have a renewed interest in this game. There's actually been a lot of cool stuff happening over there. Even though the game is pretty old at this point, there's still a lot of active modders and active mod releases. But alternatively, if you don't like old games and you like newer Fallouts, but maybe don't like them anymore, you can get some of that content in Fallout 4 also. As next up, we do have a look at another update around the Excavator power power armor. So I feel the need to say this every time, but the Excavator power armor is obviously from Fallout 76, although Bethesda has a rule where you can actually port content from one game into another game. So to get this power armor in Fallout 4, somebody had to remake it from the ground up, and that's what we're seeing here. Specifically in this image set, we're actually seeing one of the pretty cool mods for this. The base Excavator power armor was just available with Fallout 76, but there was this kind of primal version of it that you could actually buy for $8 on the Atomic Shop. Or, as you could see here, modders actually just made it, and it'll likely ship for free with this mod for Fallout 4. It looks great, and for the low price of nothing, it is pretty hard to beat that offer. Then we have what I guess is a teaser for Pretty Little Things. Basically, Pretty Little Things seems like it's actually going to be a larger bottle cap accessories mod, so an apparel mod that you could use in Fallout 4. The only details I could really find about it are a teaser all the way back from 2016, outside of the brand new teasers that have actually just been uploaded a couple of days ago. And I gotta say, the reason this caught my attention, this has got to be one of the coolest and most interesting interior locations I've ever seen in Fallout 4, including most mods. It just looks cool, like something out of a crime noir game or something like that. It's described how this is actually going to be an interior used for a quest with this larger mod. Again, I still don't know too many details. It seems like it is just going to be bottle cap accessories for your character. That's not something I'm typically into, but if the quest is even slightly as good as this interior, it is definitely something I'm going to check out. Although next up, we actually have some more updates around Peace. So Peace is the Project Extend and Change Everything. It's the sister mod to Wars, which is the weapon edition or replacement suite. Peace is doing a lot of things. I've talked about it in the past. Too many things to talk about in this video, but what we are looking at in this video are actually a series of pretty cool weapon racks this is going to be adding to Fallout 4. So to be frank, there's not a ton to say about it. It's going to work similarly to the Contraption DLC, where you could just place a weapon in this and then it will appear on the weapon rack. This of course looks way better than what we have right now in Fallout 4, and it just looks a lot more fitting and custom. In these you could actually see several of the weapons that will eventually be added in by Wars, but also mentioned in this is actually the fact that this may end up releasing as a standalone mod, which would be particularly cool. I know a lot of people that would really like using these with camp building, and it's especially fitting for your own little armory in like an office in your camp. But next up, we have another update around Flora, and this is actually a pretty big mod, definitely not one to shy away from. Firstly, it's a big mod project by Spiffy Skytrooper, and he's made like all of the environmental overhaul mods. Like if it's a popular environmental overhaul mod, there's like a 50% chance he made it. Dust Bowl Overhaul, Regrowth Overhaul, Rust Belt Flora, as well as a few others. So in effect, what this mod is going to be is a pretty comprehensive coverage of Fallout 4's Commonwealth with varying degrees of flora. And really, varying degrees will be the core of this one, as this mod and the flora added with it will actually be spread around into different regions. Just based off this map right here, brown is going to be dead or dry, yellow will be swampish, green will be lush, so heavy trees, and then black will be dead or nothing. The glowing sea in this will actually be using the fungal forest mod that's already released by the same author. And it looks like this is actually going to have a pretty cool effect on Fallout 4, which you could mostly see from some of the images. True diversity in some of those regions. Not just more trees, but well-placed or smartly placed trees. It looks particularly cool, but if that wasn't your cup of tea, fortunately it is modding and you do have alternatives. As in a similar vein, we also do have some updates around Borealis. This mod is also going to be adding regions of foliage into Fallout 4, but it's taking a bit of a different approach. With this one, it's basically meant to be the end of a nuclear winter. So some areas are melted, some areas aren't as melted, and has more of a colder but sometimes dead, sometimes regrown theme. And you do see variations across the Commonwealth and also in some of these images. This of course also isn't just a foliage overhaul, it's also bringing texture changes to some of the rocks, grounds, and grass. As you can see, this too actually looks particularly awesome, and you can really see some of the variation in regions. But otherwise, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the Fallout 4 part of this video. But before we end things off, I do want to share today's psychology fun fact of the day, and I feel like this one is particularly valuable because it's unintuitive. I wouldn't assume this unless I had learned about it, and it's actually fairly relevant with what we have going on in the Fallout community right now, and that is group polarization. So when you take one person, an individual, and they join a group of people, I think a lot of people would assume that they actually get a more moderate view. You hear some differing perspectives, so maybe you get a little bit level-headed and you're not as extreme in your viewpoint. While in reality, oftentimes while joining groups of similar attitudes, it's the exact opposite. Individuals tend to have more moderate viewpoints, but then when you join a group, you get a more extreme viewpoint. So there's two real major leading theories as to why this happens. One of them is the social comparison theory. This not as popular, but basically what it means is as you join a group, you actually want to stand out from the pack. Everyone has similar views, but you want to be different, maybe viewed as more of a leader, so you make your view a little bit more extreme. And thus, in turn, you're kind of different. You're a little bit more extreme than everyone else in that group. And before you're just like, oh, I would never do that, you have to think some of this stuff doesn't happen consciously. It is in your unconscious. You don't even realize you're doing it. It just kind of happens. But the other one that I think is a lot more prominent and what you see a lot on social media is informational influence, where more or less with this, it's the idea that as you join a group of like-minded people, or even loosely like-minded people, you'll hear a lot of different arguments for the same thing. Everyone in the group might dislike the Epic Game Store and have slightly different reasons for doing so. So you may gain additional perspective as to why Epic bad, things you didn't think about originally. As such, your view on Epic being bad will become more extreme because you now have more support of that view, more evidence as to why it's true. And this, of course, you see all the time on social media with people thinking in a certain way and then providing evidence or additional details as to why that is right. Then other people reading that and having their own views become more extreme. Naturally, this isn't bad inherently. Nowadays, saying extreme views almost just sounds negative, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's negative. If everything is factual and truthful, you might just have more evidence for something being accurate and right. But also, I think this is interesting as, again, it's particularly relevant with what you see going on with Fallout right now. Either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.